The court is now in session. I hand over the floor to the lead co-lawyer to put question to the witness, Reverend Im Phuong. You may now proceed. Lawyer. Thank you, Mr. President. And good afternoon, Reverend Im Phuong. Mr. President, Your Honors. My name is Wan Per. I am the civil party lawyer. I have a few questions, and after my questioning, the lead co-lawyer, Mary, will put further questions. The question I'm going to put to you concerns the statement you gave to the co-investigating judge's office. The document number is E3/5133. Mr. President, I would like to quote the statement from this document. ERN in Khmer is 00165260. English ERN 00223199. French ERN 00702334. The question relates to the period before 17 April 1975, and the question is that how many members were there in Sompermir Pagoda, and you said that you did not know the exact numbers of monks there, but you know that there were many monks, because some monks were from the province and they also stay in that pagoda. Did anyone tell you that some monks were from the province and stay with you in the same pagoda? Answer. Some monks were from province and they were from Guinea. There was oppression against monks, so they moved to live in that pagoda at that time. Question. Thank you. Could you clarify? You said there was oppression at that time, and who oppressed the monk at that time? Answer. During that time, the country was not yet liberated, and Khmer liberation. And during that time, a monk escaped to live in Phnom Penh to stay away from the American bombing. So they moved to live in the pagoda in Phnom Penh. Question. You mean that some monks escaped to Phnom Penh to stay in the pagoda? They moved because there was American bombing. Is that true? Answer. There was no answer from the witness. Answer. Yes, because of the war, the monks moved to live in Phnom Penh. Lawyer, thank you. My next question is that I want to clarify from you, when you saw some monks escape to live in pagodas in Phnom Penh, did you witness yourself that some monks got injury because of fighting at that time, or did anyone tell you about this? Answer. As for injuries on monks, I did not know. Question. Thank you very much. I would like to know about the evacuation on the 17th April 1975. This morning you already mentioned that in the night of the 17th April 1975 at 10 p.m., Khmer Rouge came to threaten monks to leave pagoda. My question is follow. During that night, did you witness by yourself, or was anyone told you that monks in that pagoda were defrocked immediately on that night? Answer. On the 17th April 1975, I did not know about whether monks were defrocked on that day because we were all afraid. We were all terrified. We did not know whether we could live in peace after their arrival, so we did not know. At 10 o'clock, after that, at 10 o'clock, we were told to leave the city for 7 days, so we could only bring an umbrella and our clothing, so we were told as such. So at 10 p.m. we were ordered to leave. Lawyer. Thank you, Reverence. My next question concerned your statement this morning. You said that after 1 month of the evacuation, you arrived at Angkroka Pagoda in Tramkak district. During the period of more than 1 month while you were traveling, did anyone tell you, or were you told that monks were defrocked and did not have enough food along the way? Or were they told you that monks got injuries? Answer. I did not know about this because we were on our own. I had students going with me, and other monks, they had their own students with them, so we were all afraid. Lawyer. Thank you, Reverence. I need a clarification from you as well. This morning you said on 17 April 1975, Khmer Rouge kept 20 monks. And you mentioned one name, that is Huotat. Did you recall that? Did you recall the position of Huotat at that time? He was the patriarch. He was referred to as patriarch Huotat. Lawyer. Thank you, Reverence. I have a few more questions in relation to Tramkak work sites, particularly Angkroka Pagoda. You mentioned repeatedly already, and you have answers to the question by OCP as well, but I need a clarification from you. You said there were no monks from early 1976. What do you mean? You mean there were no monks at all around the country in early 1976, or there were monks in early 1976 in Angkroka? Answer. My assumption is that there were no more monks at that place because I could see no monks. Lawyer. Thank you, Reverence. In relation to another matter from 1975 to 1976, you said that there were no monks at your area. My question is, when people passed away, were villagers allowed to invite monks to conduct any Buddhist rituals? Answer. Before 1976, yes, monks could attend Buddhist ritual for the funeral. And lay people, they did by their own, meaning that they held the ritual and they buried the bodies. And before 1976, as I told you, I could go to attend the ritual, and the clergies were with me. Question. And at that time, did the leader of the region allow ritual to be held in your area? Answer. No, they did not allow us to hold any ritual. Question, and this is my last question. It is about the time that you were in Angraga Pagoda and you were with monks from Takao province. From the fall of Khmer Rouge, did you ever meet monks who used to stay with you in Angraga Pagoda? Did some of those monks survive the period? Answer. I have never seen them as of now, and I asked people around, and I couldn't see any monks who used to live with me. Thank you, Reverends. That concludes my questioning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Marie Guiraud, and I am one of the civil party lawyers, and I have a few brief questions to put to you this afternoon. My first question, I wanted to know how you experienced the fact of no longer being able to practice your religion during the Democratic Kampuchea regime. Can you explain to us what you felt in relation to the fact that it was impossible for you to practice Buddhism during that period?
Answer. I felt the same as others felt, because at that time we were under their instruction, and we only did what we could in order to survive.
Thank you. You also said this morning, when you answered a question that was put to you by the co-prosecutors, that you continued praying in secret. Did I understand correctly? Did you continue praying in secret?
Answer. Yes, that is my statement. We conduct the preaching in secret at night time.
Can you provide us with a bit more information and about these prayers at night? Who attended these sessions? How were things organized? Can you be a little bit more specific about that?
Answer. Actually, we reminded about our Buddha teachings after we went to sleep. So we keep praying in secret before we went to bed.
Thank you. I also wanted to know, Reverend, if you were married during the democratic Kampuchea period, or more specifically between 1976 and 1979.
Answer: No. No, I was alone. I have never gotten married.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I'm going to quote an excerpt from the interview you provided to DCCAM in January 2005, and I'm going to quote a passage which is on page 5 in the French version, French ERN 006556661, English 003500101, Khmer 00088474. And this question that I just put to you was put to you in 2005 by the person who interviewed you at DCCAM, and I would like to read out the excerpt that we would like to focus on today. So, question, under free translation, under the Khmer Rouge regime, after you had given up your position as a monk, did the Khmer Rouge force you to get married? Answer: yes, but I opposed myself to this. Question: and did your denial offend the Khmer Rouge? And answer: well, let me tell you my story. My story was rather special. On the one hand, the former people in the village who knew me since I was a child often told the Khmer Rouge to not hurt me, and that they explained that they knew me since I was very, very small. On the other hand, since this is a taboo story, and since this is a question of faith, when I was forced to get married, I answered, I do not need any woman, comrade, because I have rice available and people to take care of me. And if ever I fall sick, I will go directly to the hospital. There is nothing to make life more difficult, and I don't have the time to feed her because I have to work every day. So people stopped looking for trouble with me, and they told me that I was right. Do you remember saying this, witness?
Yes, this is my statement. And I did not agree to have a wife.
Pouvez-vous nous dire? Can you please tell us who asked you to marry?
Answer: the commune chief. The village chief, rather.
Did the person explain to you why you should get married? Perhaps I'll repeat my question. Were you given any explanation? Did the chief of the village tell you why you should get married?
Answer: they said nothing. They said that you were rather old, so you should get married. And I said, no, I did not need a wife because Angka Angka was magic, and the food was magic, everything was magic. And after that, they kept silent, and I did not get married.
Comment s'est passé? How was the proposal made? Were they quite insistent? Or after you indicated you didn't want to get married, as you stated in your statement, were you told to stop making excuses, or to for you to stop being bothered?
Answer. And they kept silent. They ignored me until the deliberation.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. At the time, did you know of other monks such as yourself who were defrocked and then who went on to marry?
Answer. Yes, there were some other monks who were forced to get married. One of my friends was ordered to get married. And we agree with each other that after the country was liberated, we would go to be monk again. But at that time, he was ordered to get married, and he got married anyway.
Et pourquoi ce...
And why, to your mind, why did he respect the instruction to marry, and why were you able to refuse? In the interview that I quoted from earlier, you said that your story was quote-unquote strange. Can you explain to us why you think your story was rather particular or strange?
Answer. My story was rather strange compared to other story because even I denied to get married, I did not have any problem. And some of my colleagues, they got married in a group of 10 or 20s. And as for me, it was a strange story because I was not mistreated, and I got no problem, although I disagree to get married.
Quand on lit votre...
Upon reading the interview that you gave to DC Cam, you said that the former leaders of the village had known you since your childhood. Do you think the fact that they had known you, that had an impact on your ability to refuse marriage?
Answer. Local people helped me because I became a monk since I was a young child, and they knew me, and those villagers helped tell the Catholics, and I became a monk. I never entered into military service, so I was a monk since I was a child.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. You've just stated during a previous answer that group marriages comprise 10 to 20 people. I would like to know if you personally ever attended any of these ceremonies.
Answer. Yes, I attended the marriage ceremonies, and I was asked to preach during that ceremony, and clergymen were with me preaching.
Alors, est-ce que vous pouvez...
Could you please contextualize these marriages and the prayers? You stated that after 1976 there were no longer any prayers. Are you referring to marriages before 1976 or after 1976?
Answer. During Pol Pot time, a couple were asked to make a resolution in 1970. It was in 1977 and 78, there were no monks, and they knew that I was once a monk, so I was asked to help in the Buddhist ceremony, particularly in the ceremony that couple were asked to make a resolution.
Donc pour être prêt.
Just to be clear, in 1977 and 1978, even though you were defrocked, you were asked, and I would like to know who asked you, exactly who asked you to perform the prayers during the marriages. Do I understand correctly?
Answer, yes, that is correct. Answer, because Catherine knew me and I was invited to preach.
Pouvez-vous nous...
Can you please tell us very quickly, and this is my last question, when did the marriages occur? Were they held during the day, the evening? Did it vary? And generally speaking, how many couples were married? And lastly, who presided over the wedding ceremonies?
Answer, in my village there was one ceremony only at a time. It was at night time where people were asked to make resolution. During that time there were about 30 couples. After dinner the ceremony was held. The couples were asked to make a resolution at that night.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Do you recall who presided over the marriage ceremonies?
Answer, village chief held the ceremony or party.
Je vous remercie, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Witness, for having answered my questions. Mr. President, that concludes my line of questioning.
President, thank you. Now I give the floor to the defense counsel for the accused. It's the counsel for Nguyen Chia starts first. And court officer, you are instructed to adjust the microphones to the left so that it can get the voice. Now, the counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia, it is time for your line of questioning. Counsel, my respect to Reverend I'm Phuong, Your Honors. My name is Suan Visa. I am the defense counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia. I have a few questions for you. My first question relates the Buddhist or religious practice. You have just said that during the wedding ceremony, the village chief asked you to preach in that ceremony. What about other ceremonies such as funerals? Were you also invited to preach? Answer, no, I was not invited in other occasions or ceremonies. The wedding ceremony was the only one's opportunity that I was invited to be there and preach. Counsel, thank you, Reverence. Before you responded this, you mentioned that during the funeral, the village chief was invited you to be there and act as a clergyman. And Where was the ceremony held? Answer. It was held in my village in Pol Pot time. There were bodies and I was asked to be there and help. And to be both a monk and a clergyman. And after the ceremony, the body was buried or were cremated. Counsel, thank you. In that ceremony on that day, did you practice according to the Buddhist rituals? President. Reverend, please hold on. Counsel, you are instructed to wait for a few minutes because there is a technical matter in relation to transcripts.
President. Due to some technical matters, in particular, there is a problem with the transcription problem. The chamber will take a 15-minute break, and we will resume at 2:10. And is it working now? It seems that the matter has been solved, so let me continue. And Council, you may proceed. Defense Counsel. Venerable, I asked you the last question. If you can recall, please respond. President, Counsel, please rephrase or repeat your question. Question. When you worked as a cha during that ceremony, did you follow the Buddhist practice of a ritual or ceremony? Answer. Yes, we followed the Buddhist ritual. There was a process of taking the dead body for the cremation or sometimes for burial. It was a typical religious ceremony. Question. Did you also pray or provide a sermon? President interrupts. Please, witness, wait for the microphone's activation before you respond. Answer. I was allowed to provide a sermon in my village. Thank you, says the Council. Did you practice that until the liberation of the country in 1979, or when did you stop doing so? Answer. There were no such ceremonies held by 1978. Question. At one point, you stated that when a village chief asked you to get married because you were told that you were forced. Can you tell us how were you forced to get married? Or whether were any members of your families threatened? Answer. I did not say I was forced. As for the villagers, they were forced to get married because they did not know them, so they just picked this woman or that man to be coupled, although they did not know each other, and that's what we call forced, but not in my case. Because I refused to get married. Question. When you were asked to get married and you refused to do so, what happened to you? Were you mistreated or they threatened to arrest you? Answer. No. There was no such thing until the fall of the regime. Thank you, and Mr. Counsel, I don't have any further questions for this witness. President, thank you, and Councillor Coupe, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honours. Venerable, I have a few additional questions to ask to you. Could you elaborate a little bit more on your preaching during the marriages. What exactly did you say? What did you do when you were attending these ceremonies?
Answer. President interrupts. Mr. Venerable Witness, please wait. And the international legal lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor.
Yes, one observation. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a very, very brief observation. Of course, I don't want to interrupt my colleagues, but it seems clear from the statement that there had only been one marriage ceremony that he attended, and not several, as the question suggested. So I wanted this to be clear.
So with this, can you tell us what exactly happened, or what did you do during this wedding ceremony during which you preached, gave prayers?
I preach the Buddhist discipline and to give the blessing to the newly married couples. And I did that based on the instruction of the village chief, and that happened only one time.
Thank you. I would like to take you back now to the interview that you had with DC Chem in 2005, January 2005. Do you remember the foreign interviewer who took your statement?
It's been a long time. I cannot recall it.
If I mention the name Ian Harris, would that ring a bell to you?
I only recall that there was an American woman who came to interview me.
Thank you. So it seems that your interview, the interview that you gave to DC Chem in January 2005, was used by this gentleman, Ian Harris, in his book that he wrote about a subject called Buddhism under Pol Pot. Mr. President, I would like to refer to page 272 of the book of Ian Harris called Buddhism under Pol Pot. That's ERN 007-04135. And Mr. Witness, because it's not entirely clear how Mr. Harris came to all his conclusions, I would like to read a few passages from his book and ask you whether you know anything about it, or whether you talk to other monks who know something about this. I would like to start, Mr. Witness, with a passage on page 149. It is documented, by the way, I'm sorry I forgot to say that, E3/2818. There's only an English ERN, 007-0412. And I would like to read that, and then I would like to ask you a comment if possible. While this attitude toward the dead might be characterized as the Khmer Rouge theoretical position, in reality their attitude was somewhat more ambivalent. For example, elaborate funeral rites were held for Sihanouk's mother, Queen Kosamak, at the Royal Palace in September 1975. Although most definitely not a public occasion, the ceremony was presided over by a number of monks who had come over to the Khmer Rouge in the early 1970s and was attended by Sihanouk, Khieu Samphan, and Son Sen. Nguyen Chia's mother also received a traditional Buddhist funeral at Wat Khor, Battambang, around the same time. And there is some evidence that the possibility of a ritualized death could still be obtained by lower levels of society. My question to you, Reverend, would be, do you know anything about this, or do you have anybody who told you about the funerals of Sihanouk's mother and Nguyen Chia's mother?
No, I did not know anything about them. I only know that she passed away in China.
And you also know nothing about the mother of Nguyen Chia and her funeral in Battambang?
That is correct. I didn't know anything about that.
Do you remember in the days between 1975 and 1979 anything about Article 20 of the Constitution, the Constitution of DK, which is about worship and religion? Does Article 20 of the Constitution mean anything to you?
No, I was not aware of that.
Mr. President, if you allow me, I would like to read Article 20. Maybe that refreshes the memory of the witness. It is E3/259, ERN English 00184838. I do not have the Khmer ERN right now, but Article 20, Mr. Witness, reads as follows. Every citizen of Cambodia.
President Consul Coupe, please wait, and the international co-prosecutor, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Normally before this court, when we refer to documents that were placed, we refer to documents that were placed on the interface. So I'm not sure that this document is part of the interface, but in any case, I haven't found it on the defense's list.
That's correct, Mr. President. The question came up this morning, but it is a very widely debated document in the first segment of the trial. So I trust the prosecution to be very familiar with this provision. So if you allow me, I would like to read it to the witness. Mr. Witness, the provision reads as follows. Every citizen of Cambodia has the right to worship according to any religion and the right not to worship according to any religion. Reactionary religions which are detrimental to democratic Cambodia and Cambodian people are absolutely forbidden. Now, when I read this provision in the DK Constitution of 1976, does that ring any bell to you?
No, I'm afraid not. I did not see it in the Constitution, but I heard the people talking about it.
Do you remember people, commune chiefs, or any other Khmer Rouge cadres speaking about the freedom of religion, or you never heard this concept discussed before?
During the Pol Pot regime, nobody spoke about it. We all just kept silent and kept it to ourselves.
Thank you. I will move on to another topic, and that's also a topic which is discussed in this book from Ian Harris. And he is discussing the fact that in the Civil War between 1970 and 1975, many pagodas were destroyed, maybe even up to 2/3 of all pagodas, and that many pagodas were also destroyed because of American bombing. What can you tell us about the pagodas being destroyed in the Civil War or destroyed because of U.S. bombings?
During the Republic, the Khmer Republic regime of Lon Nol, there were fighting, and then there were American aerial bombardments.
But is it correct that many pagodas were destroyed by the bombs from the American planes?
Yes, some pagodas were hit by the aerial bombardment, in particular in remote locations.
But you don't know numbers. Was it correct that 2/3 of the pagodas were destroyed in the Civil War, or does that figure mean nothing to you?
I do not have that knowledge.
I apologize. Mr. West, do you know anything about the burning of Buddhist books or manuscripts during decay?
During the decay regime, everything was destroyed. The Buddhist manuscripts, for example, that were made from palm tree leaves, they tore them apart and used them as heads. And I personally witnessed it being destroyed and used it. Even the Buddhist painting was torn away and destroyed. Some were used to be used as heads.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Some other questions relating to what happened in Tram Kok district. You said something about working hours. If I recall your testimony correctly, you said that working hours were from the morning until 6 p.m. Is that correct?
I didn't know the details. I only saw it at night time, but not during the daytime.
Let me rephrase my question. When you were working, building dams and dikes, were you working normally until 6 o'clock in the night?
Yes, that is correct.
And was that the average working hours? Were these the average working hours? Did you sometimes also incidentally work in the evening or never?
During the 3-year, 8-month, and 20-day period, we never stopped before the set time, and sometimes we had to even work longer than the set time. And that's what I experienced during the regime.
But was that only sometimes, for instance, during the harvest, or was that more than incidental? Would you be able to remember?
Please repeat your question. I cannot get your question.
Working in the dark at night, was that only sometimes or more frequently?
It was rather frequent. For example, during the rainy season, we had to pull the rice seedlings. Actually, we stopped for dinner, and after that, we had to go and work again.
But that was only during particular periods in the year. Is that correct?
Yes, it was during the rainy season. And during the dry season, we had to deal with digging canal or building dams.
One last question, one last subject, Mr. Witness, is the food situation. Would you be able to tell if the food...
President interrupts. Council Coupe, please wait. There is no sound through the French channel, and court officer, could you check with the AV unit? President, Council, please, you have the floor, and please repeat your last question.
My last question, Mr. President, Mr. Witness, was about the food situation. Would you be able to tell if...
President, please wait, or court officer, could you check Judge Lavange headset? Maybe it runs out of battery. President Council Coupe, please proceed.
I will repeat my question again. Mr. Witness, you told us earlier about the food situation in DK in the time you were there. Would you be able to tell if there was an improvement in the food situation, in the food that was provided to you and others? Was the situation better in 1976 and 1977, better than in 1975, for instance?
Yes, for my village, people were divided into 3 groups. One was the regular force. The second group was the ordinary force. And the third group was the elderly. And from 1975 to 1976, the food was scarce. And only before the liberation in 1979, cooked rice was rather provided in terms of replacing gruel. And we were told that due to the improvement of the livelihood and living condition, then the cook was instructed to provide us sometimes with the cooked rice. And that happened for the later regime of the Khmer Rouge. 78, 79, and yes, early 78 and 79.
Did I understand you correctly? Then, if I paraphrase that the food situation got better in 78 and 79 than it was in the first 2 years of DK?
Yes, it became better. But I talked about the cooked rice. However, as for the soup, it remains the same, just a watery soup with some local vegetable.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no further questions.
President, thank you. And the floor is now given to Kipsompon's defense. Counsel Kung Som-on. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom. And good morning, good afternoon, Reverends. My name is Kung Som-on, Defense Counsel for accused Sampon, and I have some questions for you. This morning, I listened to your testimony, and you made a statement about a meeting held at Angkroka Pagoda. And in that meeting, there was different interpretations of it. One was raised by the prosecution based on a statement of another witness, and what you actually stated as you attended that meeting personally. My question to you is the following. For the meeting held at the Angkroka Pagoda on the issue of living the monkhood, can you provide a little bit for further details? Answer. As for the meeting for the monks to live monkhood at the Angkroka Pagoda, I didn't stay till the end of the meeting session because I came rather late from Phnom Penh to attend that meeting. Question. Did you attend the meeting for one time only, as you stated? And as you just said, there actually was another meeting also before your arrival at the Angkroka Pagoda. Am I correct in saying that? Answer. I only can talk about the time that I arrived. I did not know about. I did not know whether there was any previous meeting before my arrival, because other monks who arrived there attended the meeting with me, and we were instructed about the plan to leave the monkhood. Question: were you aware of previous meetings before your arrival, or were you told there were other meetings before your arrival? Answer. I only heard from others. Question. Regarding the meeting that you attended, can you tell the court what time it was held, or what date, if you can recall it? Answer. I cannot recall it. I did not pay attention to that at the time. I didn't know the exact date of the meeting, because we did not pay such attention to such a meeting. Question. Can you recall how many people attended that meeting? Answer. through the announcement, there were chiefs of villages and chiefs of groups. Question: how many participants attended that meeting? I mean, the laymen, lay women, and the monks. Answer: as for the meeting involving the living at the monkhood for the monks, there were not many monks, never not many attendants. But for the common meeting, there were also many other laymen and women attended the meeting. Question: can't you recall who actually presided over that meeting? I thought about the meeting that you were present. Answer: there were members of a commune and village and groups who attended that meeting. Question: were there discussions amongst the one who presided over the meeting and the attendants, for example, the monks or the villagers who lived within the vicinity of the pagoda? Answer: no, there was no such conversation, because we only listened to the instructions of Angkar. Nobody dared to raise any question. Question: can you elaborate a little bit further on the content of the meeting that you participated? Was it a meeting for the sake of instructing the monks to leave the monkhood? As I understand through your statement, you use different words or different terms. You stated about leaving the monkhood. However, the prosecution talking about defrocking. Can you clarify the use of these terms? Whether it was to leave a monkhood or whether the monks were defrocked? Answer: through my understanding, the two words are the same. It means the end result means the monk would leave the monkhood. So there is no real discrepancy in this matter, because in the end we all become laymen.
Question. Thank you. In relation to the plan to defrock monks or to allow monks to leave monkhood, was the schedule set clearly when the monks needed to leave monkhood or needs to be defrocked? Or did the monks at Angkar Pagoda have the rights to leave monkhood at any time they wanted? Answer: from my recollection, and we were advised and instructed, we were asked to be in monkhood for a short period of time, and after that we needed to leave monkhood to work as others. Otherwise, we would have no food to eat, because as a monk, we could only had morning meal. And at the time, it was a revolutionary time. No one had free time, and they had to work all together. Some were working in the agriculture and some culture field, and some other were working in an industrial field.
សូមអរគុណព្រះអង្គ
Council, thank you. Did you witness yourself in relation to the monks who had been deprived before you? Answer: I did not know about that, because I had been in the city before I was there at Angkor Pagoda, so I did not know about whether monks had been deprived before I arrived there. Question: I want to know about the time when you were at Angkor Pagoda. At that time, did you ever see monks who had already been deprived? Answer: and I could see that they became laymen already. They had already left monkhood when I arrived there. Angkor did not allow those people to become monks. Question: did you ever attend the ceremony that allowed monks to leave monkhood? Answer: I never attended such a ceremony. I left monkhood at the same time as my teacher did. Question: for you yourself, when did you leave your monkhood? Answer: I left monkhood in 1976. Question: did you remember the month? When was it? What month was it? Answer: I could not recall it. I forgot it. Question: I would like to ask you about the time when you were a monk at Angkor Pagoda. Upon your arrival at Angkor, you said you spent about 2 months traveling to Angkor. In June 1975, you arrived at Angkor. I would like to know from you about the livelihood of you and other monks while they were in Angkor Pagoda between June 1975 and the late 1975. So what was the living condition or livelihood like? President, please wait, Reverend. You wait for the red light on the microphone chip. Answer: at that time, living condition of a monk was becoming worse because villagers were evacuated afar, so we needed to support by ourselves. Question: I would like to make a clarification. Were there any lay people offering you foods during the time you were staying in Angkor Pagoda? Answer. In 1975, we could get some offering from lay people, and some of those lay people came to receive sermons, and there was only some. Question. Concerning the people who came to make the offerings to the monks, did the number decrease in late 1975, or they did not offer any foods from 1976? Answer. When the monks left monkhood, lay people did not come to make offerings. And villagers, they were fully aware of the situation. And after monks were told about the situation, we left our monkhood, and then we never received any offerings. Question. I would like to know about you yourself when you left your monkhood. Did you decide by yourself to leave the monkhood, or was there any ceremony to force you to leave the monkhood? Answer. As for leaving monkhood, it was considered like a force, because we were given a set of clothing, and we got nothing, and we were told the revolution had nothing for us. So I could consider this was a force. Question. This morning at about 10 a.m. you said that you could not stay in monkhood, and because there were no offerings made to you, and monks were leaving monkhood one after another. So you mean there were no ones giving you alms and offerings, and because of this you decided to leave monkhood, or was it because of other reason that made you leave monkhood? Answer. Let me clarify. Let me tell you this way. At that time, we had to notice by ourselves. They had a high policy or high strategy, and it's not. It did not make us feel comfortable to stay in monkhood, because when they said that when making revolutions, we had to work all together. We had to do labor, all of us. So this was the means to make us leave our monkhood. They repeatedly mentioned these points. So how could we stay in our monkhood? We needed to make the decision like other people did. We could not stay in our monkhood. Revolution gave us no free time. We had to do our labors all across the country. No one could sleep freely. So this was the instruction from Angkar. President, it is now convenient time for break. The court will take break from now until 3 o'clock. Court officer, please facilitate the proper room for Venerable Am Phuong during his break time, and take him back before 3 p.m. The court is now adjourned.